We are in the midst of, I think, what pretty much everybody is saying is the craziest election, at least in modern times. As a true outsider who made it through the bullshit, you got through the system, ran on the Reform Party ticket, 99, became governor of Minnesota. What do you make of, just before we get into the two of them, what do you just make of the state of the system at the moment?
Well, the system is broken, and the system is based upon the concept of bribery, where if you do bribery in the private sector, you go to jail. But in our political system, it's the status quo. You want an audience with a candidate, a Democrat or Republican, you better bring a check with you. Mm-hmm. And you better donate to their campaign, otherwise they're not talking to you. And so it's a system of bribery, and the people who thrive in a system like bribery have to be crooked to begin with. Because if you're comfortable in a bribery system, then obviously you're comfortable breaking laws and bending rules and doing whatever it takes. And so that's really, I think, what's wrong as a whole with our system today. The Democrats and Republicans have turned it into a complete system of bribery.
Yeah. When you look back on the fact that you actually won as a third-party candidate in Minnesota, does it almost seem crazy to you now? Because it really seems that at this point we've gone so far backwards now that I don't know that someone could do it anymore.
Well, you can do it. It could be done this year if they'd allow Gary Johnson. The key is the debates. Mm-hmm. See, the Dems and Repubs hate each other, but they team up to keep anyone else out of the debate. They sing Kumbaya with each other when it's time to keep Dr. Stein and Governor Johnson out of the debates. They're right in bed together on that baby. But the point is, they don't let anyone else into the game. As Ralph Nader called it, the two-party dictatorship. That's what you have in this country, the two-party dictatorship. And they won't let anyone else in for fear that a third entity like I was in Minnesota will beat them. And then, oh my God, what do they do then?
Right. So
if they get beat.
Yeah. So speaking of getting beat, I mean, Hillary beat Bernie, but we know that the DNC...
No, she cheated.
Right. So we know the DNC was in on it. So
yeah, the DNC, it was fixed. It was fixed. Bernie wasn't going to win. They got superdelegates. And the minute I heard about superdelegates, I said, what are these things? That's the fix. So the fix was in. Bernie didn't have a chance. Hillary was going to win, and they fixed. And who did they blame? The Russians.
Right.
They blame
right.
They blame the messenger, not the message. If they hadn't wrote those emails, could anyone have hacked them? Mm-hmm. No, they wrote them. And then how do they know the Russians did it? Wasn't that convenient? Let's blame the Russians. Are the Russians that concerned over whether Hillary or Trump win? It doesn't matter, because it's the same Democrats and Republicans are going to be running the thing anyway.
It sounds like the beginning of a plot of a movie that you should have been in like '87, and then you and Schwarzenegger go in there and clean up shit.
Maybe, I don't know. You know, when you look at it from that aspect, it is. It's almost laughable, like a movie script. But, you know, the whole situation is they won't let anyone else in the game for fear the rise of a third party, the third choice. And this is the year it should happen, because Trump and Hillary's negatives are through the ceiling.
Yeah.
Nobody likes either one of them.
So
why do they vote for them then? When you have other candidates, why would you vote for people you don't even like?
Yeah. So do you think the real missed opportunity here then was that instead of Bernie just acquiescing and sort of being put down by Hillary and the DNC, that he should be the third party guy right now? I get it with Gary Johnson. I did a video a couple weeks ago saying we have to at least support this guy until the debates because we need another voice in there. But do you think Bernie actually missed his moment here?
Yeah, and I knew it was going to happen, because last summer Bernie came to Minnesota and I went down there. And I actually went down there thinking I would endorse him. He gave me the complete cold shoulder.
Really?
Oh, he spoke to me in a hallway for 1 minute. And all I got to ask him was the important question. I said, Senator Sanders, If you fail to defeat Hillary Clinton for the Democratic nomination, will you keep the revolution going by either running as an independent or throw your support to an independent? He looked me right in the eye and said, nope, I will endorse Hillary. Right there, I said, he's a phony.
Man.
Because he's a Democrat. And for him to now mask himself as an independent is phony. Bernie Sanders is a Democrat because once he said he'd endorse Hillary Clinton no matter what, that made him a Democrat in my book. He wouldn't even go outside. He wouldn't continue the movement. So all those people out there that endorsed and got so behind Bernie Sanders, you got hoodwinked.
Yeah, and those people are not excited to vote for Hillary. So let's talk about Hillary for a second. I mean, from everything that you've said here and everything that I know that you believe about money and politics and a corrupt system and politicians that lie and a media that helps them lie, it strikes me that Hillary is the pinnacle of that.
Absolutely.
So is she, I mean, do you view her as actually a real threat to the underpinnings of what democracy is supposed to be?
Yeah, because it's all fixed. It proved with the emails that the whole democratic process was fixed, that they handpicked her, and it didn't matter what went on. She was going to be the nomination. Yeah, and she, you know, she takes $500,000 to do a speech for Wall Street. That's not buying her.
Right.
She can sit and say that she's not influenced. That insults my intelligence.
Right.
It truly does.
I'm pretty sure.
And the fact that here's the most important thing to me. The most important vote Hillary Clinton ever took as a senator, she admits she blew it. She voted for the Iraq War, and now she says it was a mistake. So sending our kids to war, the most important vote you could possibly take as a politician, Hillary got it wrong and admits to it now. So we're going to put her thumb on the button?
Yeah. And by the way, whatever you think of Benghazi specifically, she was Secretary of State for what we've done in Libya, and now all hell has broken loose over there too. So there's a series of bad decisions. I'm curious, do you give any of the people that voted for Iraq, do you give any of them a little bit of a leash because of the way we now know that the information, that the intelligence community told them things that weren't true? You know, Colin Powell with the rods. You don't buy any of that.
I was doing a right-wing radio talk show host once when I was governor, and the subject came up, and this guy said, it's a difficult decision. The hardest decision you could make as an elected official to go to war. I looked at him and said, you're wrong, it's an easy decision. And he jumped all over me. How can you say it's an easy decision to go to war? When he was done, I told him why, and I'll tell you why. Going to war is an easy decision. Here's why. A war is justified if you're willing to send your kids to fight it. If you ain't willing to send your kids, how do you send someone else's? And I can unequivocally tell you, I would not have sent my kids to Iraq.
Yeah.
And that's as simple as it gets. It's justified if you're willing to send your children to fight it.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to do that, how do you send someone else's kids to do it?
Sure. And we always have money to do it, even though we somehow don't have money to fix our infrastructure and our roads and all that. So, all right, let's put Hillary aside now, and let's move to Trump. I'm going to partly put some words in your mouth to preface this. I have a feeling that you kind of like Trump. That just on the outsider part of it, the wrestling part of it, the breaking the system, getting through the bullshit, saying things off the top of your head, for that portion of it, I'm going to say that you're pro-Trump.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I like what he's done. I like he's fractured the Republican Party, just as I liked it when Bernie fractured the Democrats. Remember something. Pat Buchanan and the Republicans destroyed the Reform Party. When they came in 98 or 2000, Pat Buchanan brought his minions in and they had a mistake in the Reform Party. You could become a same-day delegate. So he brought in all his people, got the nomination, took 30 million of our dollars and never even ran. Guess who watched all that? Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump came and supported me in Minnesota in 98. Donald ain't a Republican, he's an independent.
Right.
He just joined the Republicans like Bernie joined the Democrats. Well, Trump watched Pat Buchanan destroy the Reform Party. He essentially now did the same thing to them, right back in their face. He came in and destroyed their party of what it used to be. So I cheer him for that. Now, I've known Donald for 25 years. I consider him a friend. But will I support him? No, because we differ completely on the Middle East. I'm anti-war. Get out of there. They're going to go to war. No matter which one of these two people you elect, 4 years from now, we're still going to be at war. But having said that, I also differ with Donald on immigration. I live in Mexico half the year. I love Mexicans. They're wonderful people. I don't want to live in East Berlin. Right. We're going to put a wall up. Excuse me. Ronald Reagan is the icon of the modern day Republican, right?
He's supposed to be.
Well, I don't think Ronald Reagan could even be a Republican today. But that aside, it seems to me his iconic quote was, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." What is he thinking today, knowing the United States is possibly going to build a wall and that we're going to become East Berlin?
So putting the wall
aside. Here's your trade-off. Here's your trade-off. If we're going to, then we should take down the Statue of Liberty.
There you go.
Because the Statue of Liberty says, send us your poor, send us your downtrodden and all that. Well, we obviously don't want them, so let's take down the Statue of Liberty. It's outdated today.
Right. I mean, isn't that the whole point of immigration? Usually countries don't send you their brightest and their best, but it's the people that need help, and that's why most of our ancestors came here.
The people who come here to make their way, to go after the American dream. You can come here as an immigrant and end up a millionaire. The opportunity's there.
Yeah. So I'm with you on all of that, and I've said many times, I don't know if the wall is sensible or financially sound or any of that stuff.
Wait, I'll tell you how sensible it is.
Yeah.
You build a 30-foot wall and I'll find somebody with a 31-foot ladder.
So it's good for the ladder people too.
No. It does work though. You want to know how I know it works? Because centuries ago, they built the Great Wall of China and there ain't one Mexican that I know of that's gotten over it.
That is a good point. That's I can't think of. I'm gonna have to Google that after and find out what's what. So I know a certain amount of people are going to hear you and they're going to say, wait a minute, Ventura wants open borders and blah, blah, blah. What would you say about, because you also don't trust the government, so it puts your position in an interesting spot, because I'm with you, but then it comes to, all right, well, how do we vet people properly? And I don't trust that the government will do it properly or knows how to do it properly or even can do it properly.
Well, government's about compromising. So I'll give you my compromise, okay? You have to bring home and close our 178 military bases throughout the world and bring our kids home, and then use our military to protect our border. I heard an interview where a BBC guy was grilling President Putin of Russia, Vladimir Putin, and he was really getting on him about Russia's aggression. And Putin very calmly said to him, well, let's really talk about this openly. Russia has 2 military bases outside of the country of Russia. The United States, I believe, has something like 178. Who's the aggressor?
Yeah, I mean, Bill Maher says it all the time. It's like, we still have 40,000 troops or something stationed in Germany. The war is over. Yeah. The war is over.
And the point is, who's the aggressor?
Yeah.
Yet we accuse Russia of being aggressive. I would shine the mirror on us and say we're the aggressors. 178 bases throughout the world. For what? Bring them home. Close them down.
So if enough people...
Let the rest of the country defend themselves.
Yeah. So if enough people heard that message, how do you actually do it? Because I think a lot of people hear the spirit of what you're saying and say, yeah, it doesn't make sense to do all this stuff. But how do you actually untie all of this stuff?
Well, Ron Paul, I remember when Congressman Paul was opposed to the Iraq War, and they said, well, we're already in there. How can we get out now? And I thought, Congressman Paul had the greatest answer in the world. He said, we marched in, all we have to do is turn around and march out.
Yeah, but do we bear some responsibility then? Because although I obviously was,
what?
Well, like for example, so when we went into Iraq originally, by the time Obama had us pull out, it was doing better. They were having free elections and all that. Then we left in haste, and now it's basically a war zone again. So it's like we're damned if we do or we're damned if we don't. We got in and then we left in a messy way, and now it's worse.
Okay, Jesse's going to give you the lesson on the Middle East now.
Bring it, brother.
I spoke once, and I had a woman come up to me after Muslim. And as Bill Maher said, she was decked out in the beekeeper suit.
Right.
But her face wasn't covered, but she had all the Muslim attire. Young woman. She walked up to me when I was done speaking, and she said to me this. She said, you understand the Middle East. Why doesn't anyone else here? And now I'm going to explain it to you. What you have in the Middle East today is blowback. It is blowback from colonialism. You have to go way back to then. When Europe colonialized the whole world and went through that, when they got to the Middle East, they made the countries to benefit them, the Europeans. They didn't make the countries to benefit the people who lived there. You had three warring factions there, the Shiites, the Kurds, and the Sunnis. Rather than giving them all their own country, they put all three of them in every country.
Yeah.
So the wars continued on and on inside the borders of the countries. So the only way the countries could be governed was by a dictator. The minute then the United States comes along and decides we're going to remove the dictators and give them democracy. People who wouldn't know democracy if it bit them on the ass. We take out the dictators, and what do you have now? Total chaos and total disruption of the entire region. And when will the United States look in the mirror and take ownership for what's gone on over there? But we don't bear the ownership, do we? ISIS exists because of what we did. We went into Iraq, and you got Bush and Cheney, who never went to war, running the op, right? Well, anybody with any knowledge will tell you, you don't disband the military like we did. We put them in unemployment.
Right.
Bremer went over there and kicked them out the door. Well, they then went up and formed and became ISIS. If you invade someone, you keep the military intact, because it's a strange thing with military. Military will follow who's ever in charge. That way you got the whole Iraqi army is still on the payroll. They can feed their families. They're going to do what you want them to do. Instead, George Bush and Dick Cheney and Bremer cut them loose.
Yeah.
And now we won't take responsibility. We created ISIS.
Look, if you want one other example of that, it's that we have a military dictatorship now after they tried democracy in Egypt, and it's one of the only stable places. Governor, I know you have to go, so real quick, who is winning this election? I want the official prediction right now.
Well, I figure Hillary probably, because it's fixed. You know, well, her nomination was fixed. Why wouldn't you believe the rest of the election is going to be fixed the same way?
We shall see. All right, well, it's always a pleasure talking to you, Governor. I know you got a long day of press ahead of you, so I want to thank Governor Jesse Ventura for joining me on the show this week. And you guys can check out his new book, The Marijuana Manifesto, Jesse Ventura's Marijuana Manifesto, in the link that is right down below. Thanks again, Governor.